Yeah, look, it's already started, and it started a year or two ago. There's two very good guys in the high performance arena there at Movistar, Harvey Muriel and Ivan Velasco, and these guys are the ones who've started to really start to shift the mentality there at Movistar. With no, you just can't ignore the high performance aspect of of aerodynamics, spending time in the wind tunnel, suits, the details of preparation that I suppose over the years that the sport evolved quickly, and maybe they were a little bit left behind, and so that shift has already started. Don't worry. And the tactics, what you thought were tactics 3-4 years ago, they're evolving race to race. And depending on which team you're racing, who you're racing against, what you thought was a good tactic 6 months ago, maybe it's not the best tactic next week. What you would have thought 3 years ago or 4 years ago or pre-Tadej was a stage for the opportunist is now not necessarily a day for the opportunist. When he's on a roll and when they've got that killer mode on, there is very little you can do, except try.
Welcome to Beyond the Podium, and you are in for a treat. We have a special guest, a dear old friend of mine from almost 30 years ago, was a director of mine and Brent's, and Brent is coming in here with myself as well. Bring in Matthew White, 30 years in the sport. Matt, thank you so much for being here. The big news as of late, and we're going to just keep on skipping because I think if we start talking about the good old days, this will be a 7-hour podcast real quick. But let's start a little bit, just broad strokes, Matt. You've been in the sport. This is going to be your 30th year in Europe. I don't know if you're going to be revoked as an Aussie at this point in time, considering you've been there a lot more than you've been in Australia. But you're going to Movistar now. And this is pretty much the hallowed ground of cycling. You're talking about Real Madrid or Barcelona of cycling. And these guys have been around. This is 45th year this year, 46th year next year. Senor Nzui started this bad boy when he's 35 years old, which is crazy to even think about. So, Matt, let's just talk about transition to Movistar, what you're looking forward to. But more importantly, just from what you started with 96, becoming a director sportif with myself in 2008, with what became Garmin, now EF, and then going to Jayco with Brent as a director, and now over here.
Yeah, it's been a long journey, but geez, it's gone quick. It's really gone quick. And like you said, I've been in Europe a long time, different parts of Europe. But it started off chasing a dream as a young fella, and then turned into a career that is still going. But I love what I do, and it is a change. It is a change. 14 years in the one organisation, and but going to like you said, one of the oldest organisation in the world tour, and I'm excited about the challenge.
So you came over, you were, I believe, 34 years old, which at the time we thought you're so young. You still had you still definitely had some fight in you as a cyclist at that point in time, if I remember correctly as well. And you made the transition coming over into being the first year of it in 08 and a startup team. And now it's completely different. So what have you learned over the past couple of years? And what has been really some of the bigger difference of the sport? What's the evolution as we've seen like in the last 5 years, even the last 17 years? Talk about a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, there's been so many changes. Just the big thing with professional teams now is the amount of staff. When you look at the way that teams approach the sport in general, whether it's training, whether it's nutrition, technology, planning. When I first started, every team would have had 3, maybe 4 sports directors. Now teams would have 8, maybe 8 or 9. You'd be going to a race either alone or at the maximum with another sports director. Now you're going to the Tour de France with 4 sports directors. A lot of teams had 1 coach. Now they have 6 coaches. There's departments that didn't exist 5 years ago. The communications department. You might have had 1 person. Now you go to a race with 3. You go to the Tour de France now with 35 to 40 people, including the riders. So just the whole entourage has totally changed, and the level of professionalism has obviously changed as well, even in 5 years, 10 years. So it's a much bigger organisation, week to week, year to year. The budgets have gone up a lot, and just the level of detail across the board has really changed and changed quickly.
Whitey, speaking of that entourage, I was reflecting way back down memory lane. I think when I met you was 2007, and you were with the U.S. Postal Service entourage at the time. I was fortunate to come to that camp as a bright-eyed and bushy-tailed U-23 rider, sort of trying out for the team. And you were one of the more veteran senior guys on the team then. So I want to throw that in as context for the listeners of the show who maybe don't know your whole story. Like, that team, even 2007, was arguably the standard for that entourage, the resources, having, the most directors, the best mechanics, the best bikes. So when you look at your transition from that time as a rider, what was it about the appeal of becoming a director in the years to follow after that, after being a teammate with Christian, after that time at U.S. Postal Service prior to that, that really pulled you to this director side that you spent the second half of your career and a couple of decades now working on as well?
Yeah, so when 2007, when I was with Discovery Channel, there, I didn't actually think that I would even have sort of an opportunity to be a sports director because, back then cycling was really still a Western European sport, and French would employ French, and Italians would employ Italians, and Spanish, and so on. And so there wasn't, I didn't have a crystal ball, and didn't, the even Discovery Channel, it was an American sort of registered team, but it was really run by Europeans in general, and I didn't think I'd have an opportunity. And so, like, I think I was 33 at the time, and when the EF or the Garmin was created, they were looking to make it was a real American team that was coming to Europe. It had existed as a junior team, and then an under 23 team, and 2008 was the big launch where they were going for a real European-based American international team, but American DNA. And when they approached me there, I had a good think about it because I was still enjoying my career as a rider, but I didn't. The rationale was I didn't think if I turned down that opportunity, I didn't know when I'd get another one, and I didn't know how quickly the sport would evolve, and all the Ineoses and the BMCs and the Jaycos, all those teams didn't exist. And within 3 or 4 years, the sport, there was a massive pendulum switch between a Western European sport and a really international global sport in that first 5 years after I retired. So at the time, the rationale was, well, this is a great opportunity, and I took it, and I didn't look back either. I was enjoying my career as a rider, but I really did enjoy that transition, and it was an interesting transition because I went from being teammates of guys like Christian the year, 1 or 2 years before, to being their sports director in a season and a half. And there was that original crew we had in 2008. There was a really core group of hardcore pros, seasoned professionals, and then a group of really young American up and comers. And we had a lot of success in that first year in 2008 as well. But it was a really good mix of guys. And I remember the staff were very, very young, me included. And all startup teams, you have your moments, because the staff, we all had to move to Girona. We're all living in the same place. We'd be traveling a lot with each other. Come home, we'd still be seeing each other in Girona. But it was a great group, and it's now what, like I said, now it's EF, but it was the start of something very special.
What I remember so many different things from '08, but especially if I really think of you as a director, as a green director. First of all, what you alluded to, how a little bit, I wouldn't say awkward, but how different that was to have a good friend being a director. And it was a little bit hard to wear a different hat for yourself there. But I really remember going over the Crowd Affair, and I was still top five. So you had decent car position. And I didn't have any teammates like every day in the mountains, and I'd be looking for a water bottle. I'm like, Whitey, where are you? And you come up there, mate, you don't know what it's like back there. It was so insane for you to be driving the car. Anyway, I was going to say, I was thinking about this earlier, and I was talking to Lee about it. Would you think about this journey started on the other side of the ropes and not being a rider, really with Jane? Maybe on more of a psychological aspect. You get into the role that Jane played in sports as well, Whitey. But did you think that started all the way back in the late '90s, and how you were doing with your partner?
Yeah, definitely, and yeah, my wife she did 4 Olympics in athletics, and I was coaching her for 7 or 8 years, and yeah, I didn't know much about her specific discipline when I already took over her coaching. She was obviously at a high level, world class anyway. But the big thing that had an influence on her career was, like you said, alluded to, the psychological part and the approach, the mental approach to her sport. So, I took a lot of the principles from time trialing because physiologically, race walking was an hour and a half time trial without technical aspects of the time trialing that we have on the road. And their mentality is training, and maybe only 4 or 5 big competitions per year. Whereas cycling is the opposite. We do a lot of training, sure, but we were racing 70, 80 days a year there. So that approach to how you approach the big events and how you approach the preparation phases, and obviously it's a little bit different when it's your partner as well. But that certainly did get the ball rolling for me. So yeah, I suppose it was a surprise, but it was I suppose a natural progression from what I was already doing as an athlete. And you remember me as an athlete, Christian. I wasn't a big champion, but I could relate to everybody. I could relate to the biggest guys in the team, and I could relate to the youngest guys in the team. And I think that sort of my character and my personality abodes well to being a sports director. Yeah, because I think the best sports directors are usually not the best bike riders, because the big champions, they understand how they work and how they get the best out of themselves. But sometimes the biggest champions, they actually don't understand young guys and how they suffer, because for them it didn't come easy, but it came in a different way. Big champions race and they grew up a different way and they developed a different way. And I think what helped me is I was a good bike rider, but I could understand the young guys and guys who are suffering and sort of make their way through the professional ranks. But I could also sit down and talk with anyone in the biggest champions as well. And I think that's a talent that you have to have as a successful sports director.
Let's focus on that well put there, Whitey, as well. And I think all three of us share the same thing right there. The common denominator between the three of us. Going forward, though, with Movistar, I mean, you're going into a juggernaut like we explained earlier, Anzui, and you think about the names that have been a part of this team: Indurain, Delgado, Valverde, Quintana, Enrique Masna. I mean, they've some serious accolades being put in behind what they've done in the past, but a lot of it has been in the past. And this is a team that is really the quintessential family. They truly are a family within that squad.
Yep.
And you could feel it when you get on the bus and the way they talk to each other, the way they bring you in. It's like going to Southern hospitality when you go there. It truly is incredible. That said, they've been a little bit reluctant to evolve into what modern cycling. And like you mentioned just now, it's been so quick. And it is just, oh my goodness. So I believe that you might be one of the first Anglo speakers ever to be in this role over in this squad. And I was, Brent, you never had to do this, but I mean, the best and worst year of my life was 2004 when I went over to Liberty Seguro. So I learned so much in that one year, what I liked and what, more importantly, I did not like. It is eye opening, and it's a culture change. But and you said it as well, Whitey. In the years after you retired changed so quickly, and it has become more of an Anglo sport. When we first came over there, it was all French and Italian. I mean, we had to learn all the cuss words in Italian immediately, or else you didn't know someone's being pleasantries or against you. So now it's always English. So Whitey, what is the mentality in Movistar? Where do they want to go? I mean, only 9 wins this year. I mean, this is a team that's had 20 plus wins for decades. So the last couple of years has been a bit slow. They still have fantastic talent. Obviously, it's not because they don't want to win. Obviously, they want to be. They have a good budget. How do you see this going as far as what you could help out with, lead them in the right direction?
Yeah, so I think the big change is they've just signed the new extension with Movistar for 4 or 5 more years. So it's really given the organization some great security and something to build on. So, most teams are going from year to year or every 2-year contracts. And that also makes life hard for planning as well, because you're thinking next year and maybe the year after, but you're not really enabling to plan for long-term 5-year plans. So one of the exciting things that they're implementing next year, and it's a long time coming, but it's great that it's come, is they're going to have an under 23 team. So obviously the talent pool in Spain is good, but they haven't had a direct pipeline from a talent pipeline. So they've had a relationship already last year with a junior team. They're starting a brand new under-23 academy starting in 2026, which is predominantly Spanish. There's a couple of Italians in there, and then obviously that's a feeder into the World Tour team. So that's a great start. That's a great start because now a lot of the teams are looking younger and younger, and cycling is going like soccer and various professional sports that you do see in the States, that people are getting people in the system earlier, so you identify the talent at an earlier age. And one of the big changes with cycling is that the younger riders are getting exposed to best case practice a lot earlier. That's why you're seeing guys achieving what they're achieving at 21, 22, 23. And I think teams are afraid of missing out on getting the next Pogacar or the Evenepoel or these guys. But at the end of the day, the average age of the peloton is coming down fast. And I think Movistar also realized that, you've got to change. In all professional sport, you've got to change, you've got to adapt. And if they want to be a high-ranked team, they have to be more versatile, which means they need to have an element in the classics. They need to, because there's just so many points that they're missing out on in that March to April period. And look, that's not going to change overnight, but I can see the team in the next 1 to 2 years putting more effort into the classics roster. Maybe not having a pure sprinter, but having a fast guy there who can pick up points at different times. And also, but to do that, they know the team has got to be also bilingual as well. And they do want to make changes. The vast majority of their staff are Spanish. There is some international people in the team as well, but they know to make it attractive to non-Spanish speakers that they need to have international people at the helm as well. So that's where I come into things as well. So and also, obviously I've been around a long time on Anglo teams with EF, Garmin and Jayco and Bike Exchange. So the riders in the peloton know me, know what I stand for, and also I think it makes it attractive for Movistar, where we got me at the helm of the sporting side of things as well.
Yeah, Whitey, I'm excited for them. Like going back to our days at Bike Exchange, I think there's some similarities. That team, when I came there with you, it was undergoing this shift to be even more international. It had that real strong, real Australian ethos and even roster in the years prior to me being there. And then I was part of that shift to being more international, open-minded, different perspectives. But there's challenges that come with that too. And I remember even sitting in the bus with you looking at Movistar there. And like you just discussed, their greatest strength is the history, is the family nature, like Christian talked about, the Spanishness of it. But let's face it, like we, from a professional cutting edge standpoint, we'd often look at those guys and be like, yeah, like even if they can do more power than us, we're gonna beat them. We're gonna beat them in the time trial because we're more honed in. Our bike tech is better. We've done more reps. We're approaching it from a very open-minded, scientific way. So talk about going there and like carrying the flag for this sort of like more international revolution that I would think is going to benefit the team. And it sounds like they're open to now, but is a long ways from what they've been over the past multiple decades, being the longest running team now on the World Tour.
Yeah, look, it's already started, and it started a year or two ago. There's two very good guys in the high performance arena there at Movistar, Javi Muriel and Ivan Velasco. And these guys are the ones who've started to really start to shift the mentality there at Movistar. You just can't ignore the high performance aspect of aerodynamics, spending time in the wind tunnel, the details of preparation that I suppose over the years that the sport evolved quickly, and maybe they were a little bit left behind, and so that shift has already started. Don't worry, but I've getting to know these guys over the last 6 weeks. They've got a good mindset. They know where they want to take the team, and so they're the behind the crew guys, and I'm the front man. But they know what they want to do, and they're not too far off the level, if not in front of some of the people that I've worked for in the past anyway. So I think we're in good hands. We're in good hands. We've got some young guys who know exactly what we need to do. It's just implementing it now across the board, and also implementing some protocols among the directing group about, things have changed. How I would have spoken to Christian back in 2008 as a sports director is different to how you speak to athletes now. That's normal. But sometimes if you look at Chente or Pablo Lastras or Rojas, these guys who I'll be working with, these guys have never been on another team in their life. Their whole career. Their whole career, from juniors through to working on the other side of things. And if you don't know, you don't know. So they've gone the same transition as I have, but they've done it in the same organization. And so, but they're open. Those guys are open to change, and they're open to they for them, Movistar is a home for them, and they really do care about the organization. So they want to see what's best, and they know that. I said, change is hard. And sometimes people get comfortable in what they do, because it's, sometimes people don't like being challenged all the time. But at the end of the day, to get the best out of an organization, you have to challenge each other. And these guys want to change, and they want to get the best out of each other and their organization. So it's exciting times.
Yeah, I'm excited for the team. Excited to watch. And we talk to you before the Tour de France every year to get the update on what the goal is for the Tour specifically as we cover that race. And I know it's early days there, but when you talk about a successful season, altering the roster, opening the mind to performance resources, changing the way we do things, as hard as it is, what are some of the ideas you have? Like, what is the vision for you when you look at this team, the history, the potential riders coming in for 2026? Help us understand as spectators and fans, like, paint the vision of what is a successful Movistar team in the year 2026.
Yeah, well, I think the smartest thing they did straight away when they got the extension with Movistar is they re-signed a big chunk of their young talented riders. So their talent pool is locked in for at least 2 to 3 years. So you can really spend some time and develop these athletes, which is great. You don't have to fight other teams for them. So a successful team. Obviously in the Grand Tours, Enric Mas has been around a long time there. He's been at the top now for 6 or 7 years. And then the other exciting signing they've made in the winter is Kjartan Utebrooks. So who's, I think, 22 or 23 years of age. He's still very, very young. And he's a really ambitious young Belgian rider who finished 7th or 8th in his first Welter at 20 years of age, won the white jersey there. So he's a big talent. And I think he will fit really well into Movistar, because I think he's been on teams that have been very, very clinical, very, very black and white. And he's that type of rider. But, as a young developing rider, I also think you need that, but you also need someone to guide you in a personal way as well. You don't know at 22 years of age, what you think and like we said before, a lot of these young guys are very, very professional at a much younger age, but most 22-year-olds still need support, whether that's on or off the bike. And I think he's going to do really well in this team. And I got to know him at the camp we had a couple of weeks ago in Pamplona, and he's a young, ambitious rider, and I think we're going to see some really good things out of him in 2026.
No, Whitey, clean slate. You go in there day one. I mean, let's say that nobody's going to stand in your way, and you're thinking of, okay, number one priority is to do this, and this on day one to really change the trajectory of this ship. What would that be? A, B, and C in that order.
Yeah, I think going into a season with really clear objectives and holding people accountable. At the end of the day, I think riders want to be ambitious. Riders want to, and I think it makes it easier for coaches, for directors, for all the high performance staff. You've got to set the bar high. Okay, sometimes you don't always reach it, but you've got to go in to the preseason with a real ambitious plan for the year. So that's number one. Number two is getting back to winning races. I said it wasn't the best year with Movistar this year, winning 9 races, but they have the talent to win. And I think the that secret there is also picking races that you can win. You've got to be realistic as well. It wouldn't be realistic if you come and say, yeah, we want to win 3 stages in the Tour de France. We want to do this. We want to do that. No, that's not realistic. No, but you've got to set realistic targets for the riders, but then also hold them accountable. Okay, we've already started that process in our camp in October, and then we'll continue that process in December. But it also goes down to holding people accountable day to day, week to week, race to race, and also coaches and high performance staff. You know, if you're not clear with where you want to go, how can you go in that same direction with a group of people? You've really got to be all going in that same direction. So that's the next one there. And I think, like I said, the performance staff and the backroom staff, they know what they need to do with aerodynamics, with coaching, with camps. So I think it's just implementing that, and then also creating that pipeline and excitement amongst the academy team. That guys, and because now with the having an academy team, we can mix those guys in and out of races as well. So we're gonna know pretty soon. And it's a very, very young team. I think 75% of them are coming first year out of juniors. So you're looking at a team that's 19, 70% of them are 19 years old next year. And then there's 2 or 3 that are 20. So it's just finding that mix between giving them enough to challenge them and seeing who's got it, but not also just physically, who's got it mentally. You know, it's a big step up from juniors to the World Tour. And look, the majority of their calendar will be at the best under 23 races, whether it's the Baby Giro, Tour de l'Avenir, the biggest races all around Europe. But we'll also be exposing them to the World Tour. And numbers are one thing, but I think some young men have missed that art of racing. And you can go train all you want and put out numbers all you want, but you've got to be able to race and read a race. And I think that's a talent that is sometimes overlooked when in the scouting process these days.
Whitey, this is an awesome segue. Speaking of that art of racing, you know, I've been out of the sport as a racer now for a few years. We're watching all the races still. A lot of times we're saying, what the heck is going on out there? Like, just total evolution, restructuring. We hear the riders talk about it often and just deem it, this is the new cycling or the new Tour de France. But everything from no breakaways to teams battling for position and setting up for finals 120K out. It used to be 20. The best guys in the race launching 120K to go, solo breakaways. We can get into that guy in a little bit. But the evolution of the sport and the current state of it definitely has to factor into that sort of like realism that you talked about in terms of what's realistic with the goals. And then definitely, I love hearing you talk about the mental aspect of the race and the racecraft and the art of it. So give us your inside take on that, having been as a racer, as a director. You also had this really privileged position, I think, last year of almost sitting out for a year, doing some commentating and like getting that space. As you head into 2026 and look at next year, the next few years with this organization, where are we headed with this sport and that racecraft and the art of it?
Yeah, well, so I haven't been in a race. Well, I haven't been in a World Tour race car since May, and it was good. The first time I was at home in summer, I enjoyed myself. But I think where it all started was COVID, and I think it's a combination of things that, you know, we went into COVID and everything just stopped. And, you know, certain teams had big pay cuts, and we didn't know what the calendar was going to be. And, you know, that was at the same time where the nutritional part of the sport was developing, you know, where people were underfueling for 3 decades to overfueling. And then people were doing Swift races and online races. And then when competition did come back in August in 21, was it 20 or 21? I can't even remember. 20. The racing just started back in a very aggressive way, and it just got worse. It just got worse. And then you combine that with, you know, probably the best bike rider we've ever seen ever, and some teams with absolute domination with their rosters. And I don't think the sport will ever go back. And it's just it's a very different place than it was 4 or 5 years ago. The style of racing. And it sort of started maybe at the biggest races, but that is also filtered down now into some of the smaller races. There is no easy races anymore. There is no training races anymore. Just some are a lot more intense than others and a lot more stressful than others. But it's a very different place to what it was. And And I don't think, well, I suppose the young ones don't know any different, but for those, and I know talking to guys who from both sides of the generational shift there, they're not enjoying it. these guys in the guys in their 30s are not enjoying the racing as much as they certainly were. It's just there's no people aren't cutting anyone any space. It's stressful racing. It's starting at kilometers. No, before there was a pretty clear pattern. There'd be a fast start, a break would be established, someone will control, and then it'd be a fast final. Now it is fast start, fast finish. We don't know if there's going to be a break, and whoever can handle the stress and the load of that racing is the survivor. And that's it. And that's it, you know. And the tactics, what you thought were tactics 3-4 years ago, they're evolving race to race. And depending on which team you're racing, who you're racing against, what you thought was a good tactic 6 months ago, maybe it's not the best tactic next week. So I think it is getting, it's certainly testing the backroom staff as well. So it's an interesting place to be, but it's very, very different to what it was even a season ago, a season or a season and a half ago.
Yeah, well, yeah, I concur with all the things you just said, especially COVID, getting that big break, kind of like yourself, having that chance to step away, Brent. And I love the way you posed that question. Looking at now, and we just had a meeting over the weekend on AI, and having a bunch of data sets in there, and it's impossible to put any data sets on even 4 or 5 years ago because they make no sense here today, and it will not work of seeing which day is going to be the best day for your rider to win in a breakaway because you have to throw all that out the window. It doesn't work anymore. The whole thinking of 1 minute per 10 kilometers to bring back, you will never be seen again if you have 1 minute with 10 to go. So how do you see that evolving, Righty, is, both on the bike, off the bike, taking advantage of the involvement of the sport with a younger group and maybe a group of guys that people don't heed that much to. Maybe they're not thinking that, expecting Movistar to come up there fighting as much as possible. Take advantage of the underdog situation that you're in.
Yeah, look, where's the sport going? I don't know. I don't know, but I think one thing that's always going to be important with whatever team you're with, and I think we've seen that maybe with a bit of a struggle with some of the bigger budget teams, is a tight team and a united team can go far. And I think if you have a group of men that really are buying into the plan and backing each other, I think you can get the most out of them. Where the limit is, I don't know, but yeah, I think some of the bigger teams have struggled to pull rosters together. You can have a lot of money and have a lot of big stars, but I think some teams have struggled to get them going in the same direction. And I think even the medium-based budgets, which I would put Movistar in, I think if you have a talented group of riders that going in the same direction, I think you can still get a lot out of them. And I think that's what we've got to start off with. And you know what it's like. Confidence builds confidence. And I think if you get the ball rolling at the start of the season, and I think if you just you're honest with each other and you're honest with the backroom staff as well, I think that's the best way to approach things as well. And people finding that balance between having that family, which it is, but also it's a cutthroat high performance environment.
Yeah.
As well. So it's finding that balance with young guys who are developing, who are still cutting their teeth, and then the older guys who have seen the sport change in such a short period and trying to get the most out of them in their final years as well, and using the talents that they do have, which good bike riders can read a race, and that won't change. The good ones will evolve quickly, and using those guys' talents from my role, because you as a director, you have a plan going into the race, but at the end of the day, riders see things better and quicker than you do. When you're relying on television or race radio, you do miss a lot of things, and you've got to have good road captains and good, smart, canny riders who can make decisions off feel straight away. And it's backing those guys and creating an environment where guys can thrive with those circumstances.
Whitey, you mentioned a few minutes ago that when we're talking about tactics in this era of cycling, one of the factors in there is the juggernaut, arguably the greatest of all time. We're having that conversation. Definitely generational talent in Tadej Pogacar. So we're watching these races from the outside now, covering them, and we're looking at what Tadej Pogacar is doing, and we're wondering, going into the team cars, going into the team meetings, does anyone even have a prayer to beat this guy? And how, in terms of that strategy of picking your battles, picking what's realistic, how does the Tadej Pogacar factor and affect you and your guys' squad, definitely in that team, but also the greater lay of the land? Are the teams lining up when he's there, going, "Oh, it's a Hail Mary to like beat this guy," or does everyone still believe steadfastly, or a number of teams still believe in competitors that yes, on our day we can get them, and we believe?
Ooh. Well, I think when you're trying to beat him, a lot of it comes down to what he's motivated to do day to day. I think he has a team there that we've seen that they can nearly can control anything. So is he interested in winning? If you'd asked me 2 weeks into the Tour de France, it looked like he was going to win another 3 or 4 stages, but behind the scenes, we didn't know that he had a knee injury, which has come out in the last few days, or he'd been sick. Now, and I could see at the end of the Tour de France he was mentally cooked, and I knew he was never going to go to the Welter. It was always his projection to go to the Welter and win the Welter, but you could see he was really fried mentally. And we didn't know, and we only found out the last couple of days that he was carrying a pretty serious knee injury through that period. So, as we know, things can change day to day, week to week in those Grand Tours. But I think, what you would have thought 3 years ago or 4 years ago or pre-Tadej was a stage for the opportunist is now not necessarily a day for the opportunist. When he's on a roll and when they've got that killer mode on, there is very little you can do, except try. Except try. If you don't try, you'll never succeed. But at the end of the day, when he and UAE go after with at 100%, it is very hard. It is very hard. But at the end of the day, cycling's not just about winning. It's about exposure for your sponsors. It's about it's entertainment as well. And your sponsors want to see you entertain. So if you just stand in the corner and give up and we can't beat this guy or we can't beat this team, you're never going to succeed. So I think it's a combination of being real with yourself and realistic with what you can achieve, but also trying. You've got to throw things out there, and at the end of the day, he is human. He doesn't show it very often, but he does have weaknesses. And and unless you test those teams, you'll never know.
Yeah, I love you bringing up the motivational factor of Tadej Pogacar. When we're watching him from afar, and especially if you're a little removed from the sport or you haven't been in the caravan or the buses, it does look mechanical, invincible. But I love the insight that we gained, as you referenced, after the tour this year. A little vulnerability from him saying, "Yeah, I wanted to win more stages in the last week, but actually, like, I had this going on. I wasn't good. I wasn't actually that motivated." So it's not infinite. The morale, the willpower, the resources in Tadej Pogacar even are not infinite. So I like that. I like hearing a director and a leader have some hope. And my mind also just goes right back to, well, I think you did a great job with us at Bike Exchange, is that like controlling what we can control. At the end of the day, you can't control if he's going to draw the bullseye on it and if he's going to be at his best. But there's a bunch of factors and contributions to your effort and performance that are in your control. So yeah, I don't really have a question, but I guess I'm just excited for you leading these guys, and the openness and the opportunity that is there for that. So yeah, we're here for you, looking for it, and excited for you.
No, well, you got to prepare as good as you can.
Oh yeah. And you spoke of confidence, Whitey, and if anything, I lacked a lot of confidence when you were my director, no way. And you alluded to the fact of the way you would speak to me on and off the bike is a lot different than you were today. So what would be those big differences, Whitey? Obviously, you're green as well at the time, so I'm not assuming that you didn't evolve yourself. But what would be the biggest differences, even if you were deep into your career as a director sportif at the time? What would be the biggest differences, 17 years later?
Well, I think when I first started, especially, when you just hopped off the bike yourself, and it's something have tried to carry over this 17 years. At the end of the day, riders are just human as well, and I think messages. Everyone makes mistakes. Everyone has their own strengths and weaknesses. But if you have a connection with the person, I think with me, that hopefully that people can see that I still have a really passion for the sport and passion for what I'm doing, and that all I want to do is help athletes become the best version of themselves. So, when it was with you, we were friends, we were mates. So it was, and it was different because I was green and I was learning on the fly, and when you were trying to podium the Tour de France, I was learning how to be a sports director, and no, that part I've learned how to manage the external pressures and everything that comes with managing a team. But also, I also don't want to forget that one of my biggest strengths is the way I can communicate with people and get the best out of people. And it'll be different at Movistar because when you look at the last 14, the first 3 years, there was a group of really close people who knew each other and we knew how to get the best of each other. Then when I moved on to Jayco, it was a team that I helped create and had a lot to do with bringing nearly every single rider through that roster. So I knew them inside out, and it was something that I put my life in, for 14 years. So I lived and breathed that team for 14 years. Now there was no weeks off, there was no days off. I was always, and because it was something that I cared so much about. This is a different team. I haven't got that same relationship yet, but I'm still the same me. And if I can take that same drive and same passion that I've had for the last 17 years into Movistar, well then that's all I can do. But people probably find me a little bit different culturally. It's the Spanish culture of cycling, or the way that they've worked over the last 40 years is probably a little bit different than the way I've worked over the last 17. But they see something in me and I see something in them that I think the marriage will be good for both of us.
Yeah, Whitey, I think, yeah, they're gonna relate and appreciate what you just said. No days off, and that looks more and more like just connecting the dots again between this new cycling, this no days off. You've managed to keep yourself motivated. That communication, that personal journey advancement has been part of it. But whether it's Tadej Pogacar, the young riders that are coming up in the future from the U23 team, the new development team at Movistar, current pros that have been in it for a few years, I'm watching them. I'm watching you as a directors, no days off. These guys as riders, no days off, absolutely. And I just think the careers are going to be getting shorter. There's no way they can sustain this. So give me a little insight to close it up about that. Are the careers going to get shorter? Is it sustainable? Is there enough evolution for some longevity, or is that part of this new cycling as well?
Yeah, like I said before, I think the people who are struggling probably at the moment are the guys who have seen both generations, because they've just seen that shift there. And for most of them, it's probably not as enjoyable as it was. But I think for the younger ones, I think mentally, most people have. There's always outliers there, but 10 years at the very top of any sport is a long time at the very, very top, and I think that won't change. But what I think will change is, we were turning professional with 23, 24. So obviously our careers would go to 33, 34. Whereas I think now, I don't think you'll be seeing guys who are turning professional at 20, 21 going to 37, 38. For them, they don't know any different. So this level of stress and this level of competition and is like that in the under 17s now and juniors now. Whereas, so they're growing up with that. So for them, when they turn professional, it's maybe not the biggest jump. Whereas before, I think in our generation, maybe even some of the top amateur races were probably more stressful than maybe the professional races, because back 15, 20 years ago, the professional races had a certain way of racing. I go back to my Giro, and this is before in 1998, before there was live television for the whole stages. Now Mario Cipollini would get on the start line and tell the riders, "We are not racing until the second climb here." And you would say, I saw him helmet pop a kid who started racing before he was supposed to.
Pour the Coke over you if you attacked. I mean, you was hazed.
You were, and people were scared of outstepping those older guys, and that doesn't exist anymore. That does not exist. Everything's live on television, through social media, through through whatever that venue may be. So the racing, racing is different. It is different. So I think that the guys now, that's how racing is. I think the guys who have seen both sides of things struggling, but I think the younger generation, that they see cycling in a very different way than we did and we do.
All right, let's finish this off by, and this is a good segue to go into, as a father now, Whitey. Jordy is now going to be a 17-year-old. He's coincidentally riding for the junior Movistar team going forward in 26. How does it feel? I mean, you have so much passion for the sport. That's always been evident. How does it feel to be watching your own son now get into this? And I mean, of course, you want just the best for him. You want to be a happy kid. I mean, first and foremost, right? As all parents do. But at the same time, you want him to be him. And I'm sure he's probably, just chomping at the bit to become a professional cyclist. How is that as a father to watch him in your footsteps and to be part of the same organization that you're going to be now a part of?
Yeah, well, I suppose the difference is, even though he's Australian, he's grown up here. So he's Aussie mum and dad, but he's grown up in Spain. He's the culture of Spain, and when for non-Europeans to get into professional cycling, well, it was difficult. It was difficult for us to crack into the world of a sport that was very, very Western European. So I think now, all teams are looking for to be more international, but also for him, I finished school and packed up and came to Europe. Well, for him, he's packing up and going nowhere. It's home. Europe's home for him. So it is different. But no, just seeing, I see a lot of him in me. I see he's a really motivated kid who's doing 100% to chase his dream, and I'll do everything to support him. And it's great to have kids who whatever that goal is or that dream is to chase. And it's great seeing him being really ambitious and trying to get the best out of himself. And it's the start of a journey, but it's great to see him found something that he loves with so much passion and putting so much effort into it.
Proud Papa. Love to see it. Well, Whitey, thank you so much for this, having some insight within the sport. We could have gone on for hours. We love your humor, love your aspect and your look into the sport, or you're passionate about, obviously. Good luck with Jordy. Say hi to Jane for us, and love the fam. And take care. Thanks for coming up, bud. Appreciate it.
Pleasure, guys, and always great to talk to you boys.
Take care, bud.
Thanks, Whitey.
See you guys.
For all your cycling content year-round, subscribe to NBC Sports YouTube page. We got it all.